Boom. I have pressed the start streaming button. That means it's going down. It means it's going down right now, whether I'm ready or not. Although I actually do feel ready. 6:58. If you're watching this later, you might want to fast forward to the intro, or you might not. That's up to you. We're going to wait a few minutes, let people come in, do the pre-show. And if you've been here before, you know the deal. I have to get the link from YouTube. I already wrote the tweet. Oh, I just pasted the YouTube link into the tweet, and there's 0 characters left. The YouTube link, of course, has a random string of numbers at the end. Random in the sense that I cannot predict them. And it fit the tweet perfectly. That means it's fated to be a great show. My hand is here, I am here. I'm just gonna get the link, post it on Telegram. I'm not gonna post it on Instagram. Sorry, Instagram crew. It's not gonna happen for you. You're just not gonna. Whoa! You can hear my own voice. Nice. People are here. I'm just looking at my phone to get the link and post it to Telegram, and then we're good to go. I'm excited to hang out with you guys. To be totally honest with you, I'm excited to chill. Well, I haven't posted anything in Telegram for a while, but that's okay. It's okay. They're not gonna be mad. And if they are mad, they can complain. Oh, I'm going to turn my phone on silent, too. That was my own message coming through because I'm in my own Telegram feed. Of course. All right, let's get the windows going. What's up? Bruh Moment is here. Jordy River is here. Tired Teller is here. And Santi G is here. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Santi G, I feel rude I didn't respond to your email. Things have just been crazy here. Just wanted to say that. People email me. I feel rude not responding. So I just thought I would mention it. But we will talk again at some point. Anyway, how's it going, everybody? I'm doing pretty well over here. It's 7 p.m. exactly. Nice. We'll chill for a minute. You guys probably know the deal. You guys have all probably been here before. We'll chill for a minute and then we'll get started. Jordy River asked, how was having your family? It was pretty cool, man. Actually, it was pretty cool. Usually the pre-show is about me, I guess. It was pretty cool. It's interesting because, in a way, I guess everyone's life is like this, but, it feels weird having the totally white screen. It feels like it's like an error or something, but we are here. I am here right now. It was cool, man. Made me feel a little bit closer with them in a way because, I moved really far away from where I'm from, and then, they live there, obviously, and it was just cool having them here. I'm having the kid. People get excited about that. It kind of gives people something to relate to me about, I guess you could say. It's cool, man. People are excited. So much of my life is like, I don't obviously put on an act for the show or my Twitter. That really is what I'm like every day. So I think sometimes family members, it's sort of hard to relate to certain people sometimes. There's a Confucius quote that I really like. Confucius said, basically what he said was, don't worry that other people don't understand you. Worry that you don't understand other people. So I always think about that sometimes when I'm like, man, I, have this whole thing going on. People don't really know about it, or it's, or it's just I don't know how it is with your guys' family, but it's hard to just roll up on someone and be like, I'm going to tell you about all this crazy stuff in my brain right now, and you're just going to listen to me for 45 minutes or whatever. But it was cool, man. It was really cool. It was one of the better trips that we've had together in a way. More interesting, thanks for asking, by the way. More interesting little monologue story to get us going. This is the late night show. The guy comes out, does the monologue. That's what I've picked up from pop culture. I've never watched a late night show. Nor is it late night, but I had a pretty insane day yesterday because I guess it's cool if I tell you guys, who cares, right? It's my life. So I had this crazy time yesterday because long story short, everything's totally cool. The story is going to sound really intense, but I had to go to the hospital and get my wife had to get the baby situation checked out basically. It's totally cool. It was nothing crazy. They were listening to the baby's heartbeat and stuff. But it was crazy because it made me think of some things that I, often come up in my mind, I guess you could say. So like, we're at this Mennonite woman's house, and it's very like aesthetic story because just the setting of like a Mennonite midwife is like already very, very aesthetic. I go to this woman's house and like she has an iPad, I guess, for work. But otherwise her house has this very like calm demeanor. And when you're talking to a Mennonite person, it's interesting. I kind of noticed, maybe it's just her and the Mennonite people I've talked to, but they're really like right there. Like everything you say, they're like, yeah, totally. Yeah. And I feel like there's something about not being like infused with like television consciousness or something that you can really tell when you're talking to them. Anyway, we're talking to her. We're having this like, appointment basically. And she's like, yeah, I think you guys should go to this doctor and like get this checked out like now. It's like not a huge deal, don't panic, but kind of go right now. And it's interesting because we're driving. So I'm driving through like the country. I'm not really like from here, but I've lived here for a while. And we're like driving through the country. And I've done a lot of like medical stuff, in a way. It always works out. Like I'm fine. But it's interesting because I was thinking about really odd connection. But when I was researching like Amazonian shamanism and stuff really hard, the language that we adopted for like drugs and things like that, where someone says, oh, I'm tripping, like I'm going on a trip. Did you have a good trip if you take like acid or something? That's actually like relatively universal, and even in like indigenous cultures, like in the rainforest or something, they'll use language like that, describing it like as a voyage. And it's interesting because I feel like thinking in general kind of has this like landscape or physical travel component. I'm driving in the car, and that itself is like physical travel. The landscape is like rolling past me, and just to make the story more aesthetic, I'm like speeding in the car. We're going like super fast. And I'm thinking a lot, because I'm thinking like, oh, I hope the baby's okay. Like, like I said, everything's fine, but like, oh, I hope everything's cool. And it feels like in your mind, like you're going on this journey, and you can feel yourself going down these like trails in your mind, like, oh, what if this happens and what if this happens? And I thought that was really interesting how it's like a very natural metaphor between thinking and physical travel. People even say like, oh, I'm going to like a really dark place in my mind. Like if something bad is happening, it's like a very natural metaphor, which is interesting. Because thinking is non-physical, so you could relate it to any like physical process, but people naturally relate it to physical travel, I guess. And the funny part of the story is that I have dealt with a lot of doctors, and doctors have this really funny way of like delivering news, so like I have this thing with my liver. I'm totally fine, so I'm not like fishing for sympathy. But you're talking to a doctor, and I don't know if you guys have had this happen, but you're talking to a doctor and they present information in this way where they're like, yeah, so we ran your numbers, and there's this syndrome where your immune system turns on itself and your liver explodes for no reason, and just so you know, you don't have it. And you're like, oh my God, thanks. And I've had so many interactions with doctors like that where they're like, yeah, we did this screening, we ran this test, and the numbers came back, and if they're above 4, that means that you have this thing. And we look, and you're waiting, and you're like, dude, come on, like, can we reverse the order of this? So it's just funny because that happened to us yesterday. This woman comes in, and she's like looking at this like, EKG for the baby, and she's did that exact thing. She's like, yeah, so she's like this really like almost like Russian, I guess, kind of like her aesthetic, and very like somber, tall, like, dark aura woman. And she's like, how much do you know about the human heart? And I'm like, I don't know, like the normal amount. I don't know the normal amount, lady. And she's like, well, there's this thing where she describes this whole complex process. And she's like, these two bits of the heart can be out of sync with one another. And like literally there was like a 10-second pause. And it's funny because there's all these people in the room. And again, I don't know how much medical stuff people have done, but another thing I noticed is like when you're in a room with a lot of medical people, you kind of want there to be a sort of jovial, laughing atmosphere. I when I was in Colorado, I had this weird thing. We actually talked about it on the show when it happened, but it's not that interesting. But I got wheeled into this room. They were going to do this like, procedure on me because like something was messed up with my liver. And I got wheeled in and everyone was kind of laughing, and it was like, it's not really like a surgery room, but kind of. And I was like, oh, this is cool. If everyone was worried about me like immediately dying like on the table or whatever, they wouldn't be like joking and laughing like this. So I was like, oh, this is cool. And it made me feel really confident. It's kind of the opposite of what you would expect, I guess. But she's describing this process, this woman and the baby, and then she pauses and it's like literally dead silent in the room. And I'm like, oh, dude, come on. She's like, And we see this all the time, and it normally just resolves itself. It's normally totally fine, so don't worry about it. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I actually like audibly like really was like, wow, that was a really big roller coaster, and everyone looked at me. Anyway, it was just funny. I had a really crazy day yesterday. It's also kind of cool. I had a very like pack mentality at my house in a way, because I had to like come home and like scoop up the dog and throw the dog in the car, and like the dog's waiting in the parking garage like in the dark. So anyway, it was a very exciting day. That's the whole tale. But we're not here to talk about me. So if that's enough about me for you, that's great, because we reached the quota for the personal tale, and we are going to start the show.
Time we should start the service, and we want everybody that's here, that's got the Holy Ghost, to get in the service, put something in the service. And if you haven't got the Holy Ghost, come and seek the Lord and get it, because you need it. Amen. And I like to say this too: just be yourself. If you obey the Lord when we don't have photographers around, well, obey him when we do, and just be yourself. Now,
all right, what is going on, everyone? How are you guys doing? So it's not the end of the month, but it feels like the end of the month, because last week we had an atypical episode, and I really enjoy the end of the month shows, so that's kind of what we're doing right now. And it's a double atypical episode in a way, because if you weren't here last week, we did just a drawing episode, and it was actually pretty cool. I mentioned a little bit about why. I'll talk about that again in a second. But in case people don't know, I got to upfront this part because it's actually essential for the functioning of the rest of the show. So really quick, by the way, intro music, Painted Worlds. He actually dropped a new album recently. Check it out, Painted Worlds. It's a painting show. Band's called Painted Worlds. It's just a coincidence. On Bandcamp, Spotify. Check it out, Painted Worlds. Anyway, so just so you know, it's crucial for the functioning of the show. If you've never been here before, if you forgot, for the chat source edition of the show, I am reading the chat more. Sometimes people ask me stuff. We can talk about whatever. If you want to get my attention in the chat, you have to put @OwenCyclops. Otherwise, I'm not going to see it. People talk to each other. I love it. Find friends, connections, ask each other questions, but I'm not going to see it unless you put @OwenCyclops there. Otherwise, the main thing, what I need from you, if you can, you don't need to, but the function of this edition of the show is that we build an image from suggestions in the chat. So if you want to start thinking, you can throw some stuff out now. Could be literally anything. Could be what are some interesting suggestions we've gotten before? Checkerboard floor, a frog, an upside down tree, a lightning bolt, a firefly, a dog. Someone said a dog last time. Night sky, stars. Could be literally any visual thing, a circle. Someone said the number 7 one time. That was actually kind of cool. And we kind of just weave it all together. So that's what we're going to do. I do have a bunch of symbology books right here. So if you run out of suggestions, anything like that, don't worry. I got it covered. So there's no pressure on you guys. But if you want to start thinking of that, that's what's going down in just a second. And normally, in case it's your first time here, We normally do painting. Obviously, it's called the painting show. But I thought it was interesting doing the drawing for a few reasons. I'm always making music, visual analogies on the show. And the painting thing is interesting because there is a meta-creative aspect of the show. Part of why I wanted to do this in the first place was kind of to show people maybe that have never done art or never intersected with the world of like symbols and, you know, making art and things like that. Just taking a piece of art from start to finish, taking the idea, taking it to the end. I think in art especially there's this illusion that, like, you know, the painting just kind of falls out of the sky, or the artist is like this crazy genius, not me, but other great artists that you may admire, and, you know, they have the perfect idea and they sit down and do it perfectly. So I thought it'd be cool to just, you know, do it live. And with the painting, it's interesting because I would relate, if there's painting and drawing, I would relate those music-wise to an analogy like doing a piece of music for an orchestra versus playing a piece of music on the piano. I think that's a really good analogy, actually, because you have the same variables like volume, composition, tone, major keys, rhythms, all different kinds of variations, tempo, mood, ambiance, many variables. But with an orchestra, you can probably intuitively sense that the variables are just compounded because you have other ones now, like I would even use the word color, like the color of the woodwinds versus the brass instruments, or the color of the flutes versus the clarinets. So those variables, not that they get toned down, but working with them becomes more complicated because all of a sudden they're nested in with all these other larger variables. Whereas on the piano, it's just the piano. You have the one color of the piano, and that's how you're engaging with all those musical variables. It's actually a perfect metaphor for visual art because when you're painting, we have, you know, things that don't happen when you're drawing, like color. That's the most direct example. But even with the paints that we use, things like the texture, the watercolor texture, how thick it is, and things like that. So there's something nice about paring it all the way down to the pure black and white visual information. And that's what we're going to do. I actually have the drawing we did last week right here. I don't know if the camera is zoomed out the proper amount. Oh, it looks perfect on the screen. So we did this drawing last week, talked about the visitation, the theme of the visitation in visual art. I like how this one came out a lot. I think it's pretty cool. But you can see it's nice working with just the black and white information because things like contrast, you know, how we're working in details and the actual imagery itself, I don't want to say it comes to the forefront. Of course, it's at the forefront when we're painting, but it's a little bit of a different story. Also, this is the last thing I'll say before we jump in. I'm going to move my books actually a little bit over here, is that I really want to get people into art making, possibly by the show, maybe just push them a little bit further in that direction, even just sketching, keeping a sketchbook, things like that. We are going to do a sketchbook episode at some point. It's inevitable. I'll break out a bunch of my sketchbooks and we'll kind of go over it and just talk about it. But drawing is cool because you probably have the tools to do it in your house right now. I mean, I'm going to use some fancy art pens, microns, that's kind of the standard fancy art pen, but sometimes people use ballpoint pens. You can use anything, really literally any pen. Obviously, you can draw with it. So it's kind of cool because the barrier for entry, the barrier for tools and things like that is a lot lower with drawing. So that's what we're going to do right now. It also means that I am toying with a few more variables live than I normally do because with the painting, you know, scale is a really big factor in art. Scale being how big or small something is. Usually I can kind of estimate. We've been doing it for so long. With drawing, it's not really the case. And then we have things like line weight. So it'll be interesting to feel that out live a little bit. Maybe we'll start with lines a little bit too thin. We'll have to change it up a little bit, but it's not a big deal. And the last thing, I guess this is really the last thing I'm saying before we start. So if you have any suggestions for imagery in the chat, do it now. Otherwise, we're hitting the books. Is I do have a few materials to fill in large areas. I don't know if we're going to use them. I'm not totally sure. I'm a little bit torn because I would like to do it just, you know, pure drawing. But part of what makes a drawing function well is contrast and building up black and white. And if I'm, you know, working on my own, just make sure I'm not about to pull out an envelope with, like, you know, someone's information on it. You know, if I'm working on my own, I can just sit there and say, oh, you know, I'll fill this in. You know, we'll just color this in really quick. But for live on the air, it might be cooler to just bust out the inks. I have a few brushes here. And That makes the last variable the color of the fill-ins if we use them. I got black right here in case anyone is getting into drawing or anything like that. This is my favorite ink. We've used it a bunch on the show. It's technically for sumi painting, like Japanese ink painting. We've done that a little bit here before, but I really like it because it's the blackest ink you're going to get. It's just, that's it. I think if you go to an art store, this is the blackest, darkest ink that you can walk out with. It's really just so rich and dark. It's one of my favorite art materials in the world, actually. And these are concentrated watercolors, so I don't think you can really see on the camera. Maybe a little bit you can see, but in here it's actually like a hyper blue. It almost looks black because of how dark it is, but this is actually like a hyper concentrated blue ink. You can see this one probably a little bit easier. This is like a hyper magenta ink. Then I also have this one. This one you'll be able to see for sure because it's more empty. No, it looks so dark. It looks so dark on the camera, but it's a teal. And I normally don't use these for art too much anymore. Maybe in drawings I will, because these aren't light fast. That means that in the light, they will fade slowly over time. But for something like this, maybe it'll be a good reason to break it out. Maybe we'll do 2 images. Maybe we'll do 1. I don't know. And if I don't know, that means that nobody knows, because I am the one running the show. But let's get started. I'm just going to calibrate myself a little bit. So I got this piece of printer paper. It almost blends in perfectly. Let's just see how big the lines are if I... Okay, we could work with this for sure. We'll start with this at least. I just want to kind of see... I'm looking at the screen, so I'm seeing exactly what you are also. We can definitely start with this for sure. Let me just see how big we're working here. Cool. All right, let's go for it. So, let's dive in. I have some other stuff on my mind, but might as well get the art making process going and see what comes up. And if anyone wants to ask me anything, you can. Wish you all the best with birthing class and the baby. Thank you, Andrew Graves. Thanks, man. How about a badger? Bruh Moment said, how about a badger? That's a really interesting, weird suggestion. I'm trying to think if I know what a badger looks like. Normally when I do this, I don't filter any suggestions because I think it's cooler just to not do that. Yeah, let's start with the badger. Sure, why not? I'm thinking about how a badger looks right now. I actually pulled it up on my phone. I don't want to lie to you guys. I don't have badger imagery stored in my mind. But that's kind of cool because it is a American animal. The only time, I'm trying to think if I've seen anything like a badger in like classical or religious art. I guess the mongoose is like the closest thing. In Tibetan art and Indian art, actually, you do see a mongoose. It seems kind of random, but mongooses eat snakes. Mongooses eat snakes. And snakes in like northern Indian and Tibetan and Buddhist art in general, snakes often represent the poison of avarice. They represent like hostility and like negative things basically. So because the mongoose eats the snake, the mongoose takes on this symbol of like being able to tackle this like evil creature. So it seems kind of random, but it actually makes perfect sense. And he's even like an attribute of some like Tibetan and Indian deities. They'll literally have them like holding a mongoose. So yeah, let's start with that. I don't know what badgers eat, but they probably eat snakes or something, right? We can kind of vibe with that a little bit. I'm kind of torn a little bit. Its head is so distinctive. Do I just throw in the head? Do I put in the little feet and stuff like that? Let's just start with the head. I want to leave us, so also I like talking about the compositional aspect, so you guys know what's going on in my mind. It's a big difference if this is like a 3D space or a 2D space, and we're going graphic and breaking things up. So I think we'll start flat, and then we'll see if we want to open up any like 3D spaces. But that means I'm just going to throw down the badger's head down here. And I'm thinking then if we don't use it too much, it could just be like the bottom of like a frame or something, or then if I want, I can put the body out here. So we'll kind of just figure that out. And they have these little ears, right? And then they kind of come down, I think. It's sort of like a ferret, right? A badger. Nice. That's pretty good. And when I draw animals, especially when you're starting the drawing, the start of the drawing is like the seed of the style for how everything else is going to look. I usually, if I don't know where I'm going with it, kind of start with like a medieval feel. I really like the medieval way of drawing animals where sometimes, you know, you can kind of tell the person doesn't know what the animal looks like. I think it kind of frees you up a little bit. Then the eyes, how are we doing the eyes? I could just make them lines like they're closed. Feels like a little bit of a cop-out, but it is a safe bet. I don't know. Are we here to make safe decisions or not? Let's just go in with the round eyes. if I go in with the round eyes, it's going to mean that we might have to adjust the flight course to make sure it isn't too like cartoony. I do want to land in like the possibly weird, you know, maybe like some kind of like sacred art drawing style. So I did take out those whites. I thought that was making it look a little cartoony. The ears, we'll just kind of come in with this shape. I am thinking that if we put the face of a creature at the bottom down here, I have seen in some like alchemical and medieval images, they'll have one lion's face and then like two bodies coming off of it. That could be pretty cool. I'm also thinking on the Tibetan front, Tibet has some of the cooler like mythical creatures. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, it's got these stripes coming down its face. That's kind of what makes it look like a badger. And I feel like how I play that is going to affect the whole style of everything. So we'll come down like that. And then let's do this. We'll come up here. And I kind of want to / have to, I feel like, outline the eyes. Perfect. And I want to meet, boom, right where the ear touches the head. Anyway, Tibet has a lot of cool mythical creatures because one thing they do, let's see. So let's see what we're doing with the filling in. I do have this Sharpie right here. I thought it would be cool to just use tools people would have. Perfect. Just around their house. So let's see, this is the low-tech episode. Let's see how much we can push the low-tech aspect. So in Tibet, they have these mythical creatures, and one of the things they do that's kind of cool that I haven't seen as much elsewhere is they'll combine an animal with the animal it eats, and I think that's a really, really, really tight aesthetic. So you get one that's like an otter plus a fish. It has a fish head, but it has an otter body. There's a few more, but that's like the best one. So maybe we can combine like the badger and the snake if it really gets to it. We can give it like a snake body. I guess I'm kind of substituting the badger for the mongoose in my mind. All right, and we'll come back and kind of address this. It does have a little bit of like a teddy bear feel right now, but we will like toughen it up somehow. We could put like a skull around it, and the skull could be black. That's kind of sick. It could be like fire, something like that, but we will toughen it up somehow. But for now, that's a good start. Okay, badger. Have you seen Neon Genesis Evangelion for subtweeting your idea of the cross on the face of Adam with Gendo? No, I haven't seen that, but if you link me to it, I'll check it out. Might be a bit much, but a marble statue would be cool. That's an interesting idea. Let me think about that one. Let's see if we can get, so we'll kind of like take the classical vibe and like table it for a second. Let's see, classical vibe. I don't know if I want to go full marble statue. A pillar is a good idea. Arches is kind of a good idea. Let me see what the next thing is, and then we'll come back and see if we're going to rope that in. Maybe we will put a marble statue. I don't know. Let me think about that. Maybe gifts or a present. I'm not really supposed to be like censoring ideas. I'm not censoring. We're tabling and ordering them in time. A gift or a present. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Okay, and the next suggestion is grab. Okay, that's perfect. So the next suggestion is grab. I'm going to have a hand coming out of here. One thing I like doing when I'm sketching a lot is using hands. Sometimes I think it is my background in medieval and Tibetan art and Indian art. You get a lot of like hands and stuff like that. There's something about it where it imparts like a certain like human quality to it. I don't know if grab was a suggestion, but we're using it as a suggestion. And this gives us something cool we can do with the arm. We could have like a vine. We could have something in the arm, like a doorway, maybe like an arch. I'm taking the marble suggestion and kind of like tweaking it a little bit. And I like the idea of, what was the other one? Gifts or a present. That's interesting. Is there an atypical way to represent a gift aside from like the normal box with like a bow on it? I guess a package. We could make it like a package. I'm wondering if a gift, when it's drawn, is going to look too Christmassy. Maybe I could lock it into like package. A package is kind of like a gift. Let's go with that. I'm going to do that. That's also good because then it lets us put a cube in here, and it can be kind of like the center visual. And it's interesting because we're going to be drawing, right? So there's certain things that become a little bit, not difficult to represent, but that we have to think about how we're going to represent. Like I'm already thinking right now, if I'm going to make this look like a package, I probably want it to look like taped up, right? Packages, you open them from the top. And then I guess what would make it look like a package is if you could see the tape. So I'm going to come in with this dotted line here. And then how does tape end up on a package? Normally it's like tucked down a little bit, right? Then there's like another bit of tape. Perfect. We're kind of getting there on that. This would be taped up. Could even try and make it like a little shiny. Is it gonna be too much? It's pretty good actually. A little bit of a shine on like the tape on the package. Yeah, it's pretty good. We'll have some tape coming up here. That really signals that it's like a wrapped up package or something. And then we'll have some kind of like address sticker or something on it, right? That also makes it look like a package. Yeah, this is good. If you really can't tell it's a package, I think you kind of can right now, but in order just to make it totally clear, I'm going to use classic Owen drawing thing. I'm going to put an envelope here. I think that'll make it look a little bit more like a package. Perfect. Now I got like the mail thing going on. Kind of reads like as a gift. And if we fill up the screen really quickly, then we'll just do another drawing. An oil lamp. That's tight. Yeah, there we go. Let's do that. Okay. Oil lamp is interesting. I saw an oil lamp recently in the crest for this group called the Waldensians. It was in this book by... I forgot her name. Edith White. Is that her name? Edith White. She's the woman who started like Seventh-day Adventism. But this historical group called the Waldensians, their symbol was an oil lamp. I'm trying to think how much we can make the oil lamp not look like Middle Eastern, but I'm kind of just going to go for it. We already have a very like illustrational style here, so we'll just kind of like lean into it. So normally they come back around this way. Nice. And we'll give it that handle. That's part of what makes it look like an oil lamp. An oil lamp is definitely one of the most like classical symbols for wisdom ever. I mean, you see that on like crests for universities, religious orders, and things like that. The Waldensians are kind of an interesting group because they get referenced a lot. It's like some of the first like Christians who are like, we're just going to read the Bible and just going to go by the Bible. So for a lot of like American Christians, they kind of point back to the Waldensians as like a historical precedent. Let's think about how I'm going to shade this. I might just throw in, because the oil lamp is normally very like shiny, right? So I'm just going to throw in a few of the light and dark areas. It's interesting if you watch the show a lot, because normally with painting, what I would do is throw down a flat color and then come back over and drop in dark and then some super highlights, and that's what would make it look like a shiny metallic lamp. But because I'm drawing, I can't do that. So it's not an advantage or a disadvantage, it just means I have to address that. And I'm wondering if some super dark areas contrasting with the normal part of the lamp is what's going to do it. It might be too high contrast, but actually I think it's going to look pretty good. I might have to come back and shade the lamp in a little bit. Put in like an area of high light right here. We'll put in a highlight coming down here. When you do classical oil painting, at something like a atelier, which is what they would call a fancy oil painting place, you learn how to paint objects of different reflectiveness. So you do a still life of fruit, then you would do a still life of like metallic objects, like a bunch of bottles and metal things. Actually, you would do metal things next. This is just the way I've seen it done. Metal things like metal pots and teapots and things like that, varying like dullness and shininesses of metal. I'm going to shade this in really quick while I'm talking. So different metallic surfaces, and then finally you do glass. They would set you up and you'd have a bunch of glass things like wine bottles and clear glasses and things like that. And this guy I studied with back in the day said after you do that, you can basically do anything, because anything you paint for the rest of your life, it's either going to be flat finish, like a table, a fruit, just like a normal finish, or it'll be metallic and thus be slightly reflective or very reflective, like a car or anything you can think of, a medal someone's wearing, or it'll be clear, it'll be translucent, like a window or a cup. So it's interesting when drawing, trying to get that flavor in so it looks like a metal object. And like I said, when I was painting, it'd be a little bit easier because then you can come in with the highlight at the end to kind of like fake it basically. We're going to do it this way. Cool. I'm going to throw in the opening here. And I've only used oil lamps that have a big like ropey wick. So I'm just going to do it that way. I don't know if it's how they all are. But the oil lamps I've used have kind of a wick like that at the end. Then I'm going to come in with the fire because it's obviously the coolest part. And what I'm thinking is that having this down here, we'll get like a glow going on. We'll kind of like punch that up. But it's going to let us come around and make this, let me bring this down a little bit. Cool. I might even zoom out a little bit and make this a circle. And then we'll have a composition going. Once we have a composition, it'll be a little easier to dig in and, see how we want the drawing to go. So it's not just like random stuff together, basically. I want to throw in the light, but let's see what the next suggestion is. An oil lamp. Crab. A crab. Oh, you meant to say crab instead of grab, but we got the hand in anyway. It actually looks sick. I thought someone said stairs. Yeah, someone said stairs also. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to throw in the light for this. What I'm going to do is come in with the dotted line circle. Perfect. I think the dots is a good look, especially if you're just getting going on drawing, because it makes things look kind of sophisticated, and you can really easily do, for example, what I'm doing right now. Even just that, even just the medium line, it gets a little bit looser. It gives it like a very sophisticated look. I'm actually going to come in and do an even tighter one. I would call this like density, the property of like density in a drawing. But playing with that, I think, is how, yeah, see, this is already like a really good look right here. And then we'll have something coming up out of here this way. In fact, I might even throw in the stairs. Someone said stairs. Kind of depends. If I want this to be an organic shape, or I could have stairs offsetting the flame, I think that's what I'm going to do, actually. So balancing out the flame, we'll come over here. Nice. We already have a little bit of a flavor going on. I think why I like doing these with you guys is that I wouldn't use the term like Rorschach test, but it kind of is like that, where just by combining, and maybe you all are in like cahoots together, but just by combining like seemingly quote unquote random images, you do kind of get a little bit of like a flavor going on. Already like with the stairs and the oil lamp, it kind of fits together in a way. Come in here, boom, boom. I think someone said marble statue, but I think I'm going to do that as an arch, and I think having the arch is going to definitely add like a little bit of flavor. Perfect. I could just put an opening right here. Actually, I am going to, because then the shape of it will mimic the shape of the flame. So I'm going to come in, boom. These kind of doors are sick. You see them a lot in like Middle Eastern stuff. Boom. Boom. It's perfect. And I'm going to put it with the offset, sort of like offset marble on the outside. I could come in and shade this in, but I wanted to visually play off of the flame. I could, actually what I am going to do is just dot in some brick, almost like implying that this is like part of a building. Yeah, this looks sick. Perfect. Just a little bit, because I don't know exactly where I'm going to go with this. Yeah, this looks dope already, actually. Looks really dope. Okay, what's next? Crab. Crab is good. Yeah, let's do a crab. And that'll be a good thing up here at the top to like anchor it. I just want to make sure I don't go too high up. We might end up zooming out because we do have, there's more space on the top and bottom, but let's see. Crab is kind of a cool one because it makes me think of like the zodiac automatically and constellations and things like that. It's also an underwater creature. It's one of the more basic aspects of generally looking at symbolism, I would say, like a general tour of symbolism, but one thing I really latched onto in the beginning was that animals that live at the bottom of the ocean, I am going to zoom out a little bit. Animals that live at the bottom of the ocean represent going deep into the subconscious. The ocean represents like the dark, unillumined aspects of the mind. And animals that can go down there represent the ability of going down there, bringing stuff back, seeing what's going on down there. Sorry. That's probably really loud for you. So much of thinking and working with art is kind of about going down deep into those like weirder parts of the mind, seeing what you can bring back. So that's sort of what the general underwater animals represent to me. That looks good. I'm going to zoom out a tiny bit. Let's see, are we good? Perfect. Perfect. Bring it over a little bit. Cool. So now what I'm thinking is that we're going to want to make like a diamond here. So we'll have this diamond, and that'll like cement, that'll be like the base of the building, and we can do a lot from there. Then we know if we want to like come out in the wings, if we want to, you know, see what happens basically. But we want to get something here connecting this and this. It could just be the shape. I actually could just draw the line, boom, boom, but we'll see if anything else happens. They eat bugs, ground nesting birds, roots, fish, fruit, chicken, and hedgehogs. You're talking about badgers. Nice, that's cool. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see if we get in there. Okay, Santi G said, pretty random, but salt and pepper shakers would fit with the black and white theme. There we go. Now we're talking. Okay. I like that because I really like, especially when drawing, one thing I enjoy doing is like mixing in typical normal life things with like the more mystical symbols. So we are going to do that. It's perfect. And I think what we're going to do is I'm going to do what I just said. I'm going to take, I faked it. I just put a dot in there. So I could do this. So I could draw a line up from the dot. And then over here, I should have maybe made a shape around the crab, but I didn't. So it's perfect. Okay. And same thing, I'm going to fake in a little brick right here. But pretend that was there, but it wasn't. And okay, I want to make sure I do this properly. What I'm going to do is, this is really like a hallmark of like my own, what I've picked up that's cool about drawing for me, but I like making a space and then making it a window into something else. So we just set up this space, and now I'm going to take that and make it a window that you're looking through, and I'm going to put a line right here. Perfect. The mind naturally, if horizontal lines terminate at something, your mind naturally reads it as going beyond that. That's like a principle you can use when you're making your own images. So just by putting that line there, I'm going to put some stuff on here, right? I actually could have planned it a little better and put it in front of the line, like it's on a table or something, but whatever. But you can use that principle. Like, for example, if I put some trees on here, put a little mountain over here, your mind reads this line as extending beyond. That means it takes this white space and puts it in front. But what's the white space? It's really nothing, right? So now you're kind of like messing with the viewer's perception a little bit, because you're forcing their brain to read this whiteness as something that's cutting off something else, but it's actually just nothing, right? It's just the background, right? So it seems really weird and like heady, but if you start to play with that, that's where a certain aspect of drawing gets really interesting, in my opinion. And I didn't leave room. I could have left room, but I didn't. So we are going to put in the salt and pepper shakers. I think that's a cool idea. So I could put them down here. Okay, I got a few options right now. I could have them sitting here like they're on the table. That's probably what we're going to do. I could put them in front and just bank on being able to do something with that line, but that's going to be way too sloppy. I could put them below the line, and then maybe they're on the table, and that is an option, because then I could put a shadow down that puts them firmly on the table. I'm really torn, actually. I could probably fit them both right here, like 1, 2. I just don't know if they'll be big enough here. You know, actually, I think I am. Oh, well, I touched the paper. It's fine. I think I am going to put them down here, because if they're too small and you can't read what they are, that's going to be really, really unideal. But I have enough room down here. I'm confident we could make it work. So I'm going to put them down here. I'm going to surprise myself a little bit. And we'll have it like that. There's the metal part. And then it'll come down. And I think what's going to make them look like salt and pepper shakers is the angled bottom right there. This will be the white one. I'm going to start with the dotted line really thick and have it coming up. Perfect. Not thick, but you know what I'm saying. Darker at the bottom. These holes in the top will make it look like it. Perfect. Dude, it's literally perfect. I want to make sure they're the same size, so I'm going to throw that bottom line down just to keep track of where I am. And come over here. Nice. This is actually a cool suggestion because it's one of those little like everyday things, but also by virtue of it being black and white, kind of does feel like it has like a deeper significance to it. I kind of messed up these two lines. I'm just being totally honest with you. It's not a big deal, but as we go forward in drawing, that's something that in your own drawing, you'll just kind of learn how to make it so any mistake that you make, it's not really a mistake. You can kind of always work it in. I'm not like worried about that at all. I'll just make that part of the shadows that these items are going to be casting. So yeah, by virtue of them being black and white, it makes them feel like they do have some symbolic significance. I would like to have their shadows both pointing in, but then that doesn't really make sense visually, and I'm worried it would be too confusing. So I'm just going to give them kind of like these long black shadows. This is another way you can force perspective on the viewer. So just by doing that, just by throwing that little shadow down, now this plane right here is a plane. It's a plane coming out at you like you're sitting in a chair looking at a table, right? So you can always kind of force the viewer's eye to do things. And I talk about it a lot, but one phrase I use for that is, you always want to think about how you're communicating visual information to the viewer. And when you start studying really like truly great artists, like ones that people talk about for centuries, that's really where they're hitting things pretty hard, in my opinion. It's the way in which that they're communicating information to the viewer. I'm a little torn here because I kind of want to put the P and the S on them. But is that too cheesy? Is that going to like ruin it? I really can't tell. Adding letters in is going to really change the game up. But we're already so illustrative, especially with the badger head. We already are in that like fun, kind of like playful drawing space. I think I'm going to do it. It's easy on here. I could just drop the S in. The P is going to be a little more difficult because I want to shade this one in and make it dark. Let's just go for it though. We're not here to play it too safe. For the P, I want to make sure it looks like a shape, that it doesn't just look like a little like squiggle or something. So I made it even a little bit bigger than I normally would. That's perfect. Because this inside shape, I'm just going to throw some dots in here. Perfect. And your eye will read it in as a P. It's perfect. Over here, I don't know if I have enough room to make the full 3D S, but I want them to match. Not 3D, but having some line width as opposed to me just literally writing the letter S. So I'm just going to... Perfect. Great. I like that a lot, actually. And it opens up some room for us to get some drawing going. In terms of the light, I'm just going to throw in the darkness of the salt and pepper shaker. So let's see. I'll just make it like it's full of pepper, which actually perfectly suits the light and dark. And I'll make that plane the darkest. And make this plane a little bit lighter. So that means I'm making the dots not as concentrated. And then over here, I'm actually going to come in and put the dots in a line just because I really want it to read as a third plane. I hope people know what I mean by plane. Plane, like if you're holding a dice, it has those different planes. Yeah, you can see those, even though it's small on your screen, I'm sure, I think you can still tell. We could zoom in if people want me to. I'm going to shade in a little bit over here, just a tiny bit, because I still want it to read as white. But even a white object is going to have a little shadow like that. Nice. Perfect. And I should shade the tops in, but yeah, I'm going to. I was going to talk myself out of it, but then I just started doing it. Cool. Nice. Okay, and that gave us a lot of like visual info to work with. Honestly, what I'm thinking is that I really kind of want to make this like a tablecloth or something, and I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to think too much about it. I'm just going to throw down the checkerboard tablecloth. And if anyone is, like I said, getting started drawing, things like that. Really good maneuver, really good thing to draw and paint that'll really get your mind going is if you take some fruit. Everyone knows about drawing and painting fruit and stuff. I'm going to have these kind of fade down a little bit. But what you really want to get, this is the tip, you want to get a cloth of some kind that has a checkerboard pattern on it, and you want to like wad it up and like kind of just wad it up like a t-shirt on the floor and put the fruit in there and then draw or paint it. That'll give you a lot of like really interesting visual information to work with. I used to do that with watercolors and I got a lot out of it. Just take some fruit and then, you'll see if you do it. I'm not going to tell you why, but if you do it, you'll see the kind of visual information it gives you to work with is really solid. Watercolors are a really good move for that too, but you can do it with drawing or anything. Okay, cool. Okay, I like how that looks. I was thinking that I would come in and tone the squares, but we're getting like very visually dense here, and I don't want to start losing it. It looks very clear right now. I think it's like nice and clear, so I don't want to start losing details. I am tempted to make this like a kitchen in the back, just put like a counter in and like a window, but I like to lean on other people's suggestions for this kind of episode, so we'll see. We'll see what happens over here. Let's see. Half the chat in a separate group chat. That's really funny. Okay. Books on symbols, both Christian and non-Christian. Any huge book for Christian symbols that you recommend? Yeah, I'll plug 2 of the books I have over here in a second when I'm setting forth on some details here. Diamond is cool because it goes with going into the depths to retrieve something, maybe something moving. Yeah, diamond. Yeah, I like the idea of a diamond. The thing about a diamond is that you kind of have 2 options. You have like I don't know if this is too dated of a reference, but like the Ed Hardy like emoji diamond, where it's, this shape. You have the line up here. I guess it's kind of like the sailor tattoo diamond. It actually is kind of cool, but the way it was used recently and just general like visual culture, I think kind of made it like a little bit of a thing. So if I was going to draw a diamond, maybe it's not really too played out. Maybe I could use it. I can never tell. I normally use like gems though. It's funny because I normally just use like shiny gems. I guess I picked this up from like video games. And one time someone was looking at my art. They were like, what is that? Like an envelope? I don't know if it looks like a gem. In Tibetan art, actually, they draw their gems like this. They just have a circle. And then there's, a really clear circle at the top. And it kind of comes down a little bit. But it's funny because it's the same deal. If you didn't know it was a gem, you would never know what it is. I've had people look at like Tibetan art in my room and say, what is that, like candy? Why is there candy all over this painting? It's not candy, it's a gem. That's how they paint them. So maybe it's just difficult rendering gems unless you're fully going in like oil painting style and painting it. Let's think about that for a second. It's cool to solve visual problems on the stream. Underground, gem. I mean, it's funny. That's probably the function of this. It doesn't really look like a diamond, but it becomes more like a letter. It becomes more like a symbol of a symbol that like communicates what it is. Drawing a gem? I don't know. I mean, gems really are kind of that shape. If they're set in like a ring or something, they're a hexagon. People won't really know what this is either, though, right? It's just going to look kind of like a weird thing. You could kind of try and make it a crystal, but then if you make it too angular, then it reads like a rock or something. It actually looks kind of cool. This is probably the closest to like what a crystal actually looks like. Something like that, shading it in. But we're not going to do that. I'm going to throw in the diamond. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. If people don't like it, whatever. Because it would be really tight to throw up here above the crab. Like the crab has this diamond. So that's just too cool to pass up. We're going to have to do it. And I'm going to use the classic diamond shape. And I'm even going to throw in the line that's there. I guess that's supposed to mimic like a jeweler's cut of a diamond. That looks good to me though. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a shine right there. And I'm going to do the same glow that I put around the fire. I'm going to have to pull back the camera even a little bit more real quick. That looks good though. And it fits the theme of the person suggesting it. Diving down deep into the depths of the mind. This is looking pretty cool. So just to assess really quick, this is looking really tight. me looking at this, I just want to make sure we get some more black areas in. You want to kind of like make it visually interesting with the black, so we'll think about that. Otherwise, we're going pretty well. Let's see. Let's keep going. Normally, sometimes I pull the car off the highway and I'm like, let's assess, but let's just keep going. Maybe something moving. Something moving. That's a really interesting visual suggestion. Something moving. The first thing that comes to my mind is like a paper plane or something like that. Something that seems like 100% someone would look at it and it would imply motion in the picture. Let's table that real quick. Well, I don't know. Something moving. I would just throw in the paper plane with the dots. Somehow that feels like it would fit in, but the thing is, if I do that right now, it's going to lock in this whole visual space, and I really want to do something interesting that we have here with these two lines, so let's just think about that for a second. Oil, bones, roots. Okay, now we're talking. Oil is tight. Okay, oil is tight because we have the oil lamp, and it also gets us more black in the picture. So I'm just going to throw down a drop of oil coming out of the lamp. I guess it'll be a little bit of a visual pun because when you said oil, I think of like black oil, like petroleum. That's not exactly what you put in an oil lamp, but we'll make it work. Kind of goes together. I really love the teardrops. I never really got over putting those in the picture for some reason. I think it's partially because when I'm leaning really, really hard on certain Christian art motifs, I like putting the drop of blood with the drop of water. I think that's like so epic. That actually is scriptural in case people don't know. There's they pierce Jesus' side with the spear and then water and blood comes out. So something about that pairing is really tight. Yeah, I mean, that just looks good too, right? Obviously. Going with that theme, I could put another drop over here off to the side, like it's water or something like that. Maybe we will get, I'm going to take the reins a little bit here. I'm going to throw down a cloud right here. Kind of goes with the fire in a way. And I'm going to make the clear drop right here. Perfect. And they kind of go together. They offset each other nicely. You get the nice black and white. Then we have the black and white, the black and white. Maybe that's going to start to be like a theme. I could bring a black cloud over. That would be really sick. I'm just going to do it. I'm just doing it. I'm going to bring the black cloud over here. Maybe black and white is going to become the theme real quick. Perfect. And that's another theme you can always tap into in your drawings. Sometimes you just aren't really sure what to do. Sometimes you're not really, you always need like a spark, I would say. You don't really need like the whole idea. You usually can just kind of set forth into the visual wilderness, but if you need to spark something, duality is one of the most perennial creative themes ever. And you can always kind of tap into the interplay of two dualities, like day, night, summer, winter, fire, water. Even if that seems kind of obvious, something about the way that they oppose each other is always something you can like dig deeper into, in my opinion. Okay, I like this list of suggestions. Oil, bones. Bones. Yeah, well, I'm kind of thinking we could get a bone coming across the badger right here down at the bottom. This is an interesting thing too in terms of working creatively because sometimes you have an idea. I just thought of that with the bone coming down at the bottom. And you can't tell if it's like really awesome or kind of cliche. I think that's like a really funny space to land in. Because I thought about the bone down here and I was like, nah, it's going to be so cliche. And then I was like, actually, it sounds kind of awesome. Sometimes things you want to dismiss as cliche are actually the good ideas. So I'm just going to throw it down here. I think it's some painter. I think it's Picasso, but people attribute like I'm going to put like a crack in this bone too. People attribute like every art saying to Picasso, whether he said it or not, but there's a quote that's, in every work of genius, we recognize our own rejected thoughts. I think that's like really true, man. Especially when you go really hard into art and like you go to a museum and you're looking at something, there really is this feeling of like, oh, like I had that idea, but I thought it wouldn't work. And it's such a palpable feeling. Something about that quote really nails it. There's a Gustav Klimt painting, and it's just, I'll show you guys right now. The painting is just like this.
It's a really good painting. It's not going to look like a good painting because I'm just drawing it with a pen right now. Perfect. There's some more trees in the background. But it's just like this. It's just one huge tree. You can see its trunk and then the land underneath it. And the way the tree is painted, it's just like green paint. And it's just like boom, 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 and all these circles. And the way it's applied and the way it's done. And like you see it, and at least for me, I see it and you're like, wow. Like, you know, I thought if you painted, the feeling is like, I thought if you painted a tree like that, it would look stupid. But it looks so good. And there's something interesting about that. Like, oh, I thought that would be cliche. I thought that would be obvious. But actually it looks awesome here. I find that's really interesting to wrestle with in terms of image making. I get that all the time, especially doing digital art. Like I'll think, oh, if I throw down like a pink glow here, it's going to look so cliche. And then I'll do it and think, wow, actually that looks really epic. It's just throwing that out there. Other people have probably experienced that as well. Okay, what was it? Oil, bones, and I don't see the message anymore. So I think I might move. Oh, roots. Huh. All right, let's think about roots. I'm going to table roots also. We have a few things tabled, like marble sculpture, roots. How about a heraldic hawk lure? They symbolized one who was fond of noble pursuits and was thrown in the air to call the falcon. Falcon. I learned that I say falcon with a V sound instead of an F sound. And now I've drawn attention to it. The falcon lure. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to pull it up on my phone right now. What does a falcon lure look like? Oh, it's kind of cool, but I'm going to put it in heraldry, and then I'll show you guys. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone right now, but we're all here to learn together. If I can learn about a new symbol with you guys, that's pretty cool. Actually, it looks pretty cool. Like, can I show my phone? Like, make sure I'm not going to like dox myself or something. Yeah, I can. It looks like this. It looks like this. That's pretty cool, actually. And there's a heraldic one like this. Let's see what else is there. It's pretty awesome, actually. I've never seen this before for some reason. That's just a straight up bird. Yeah, it's pretty sick. We are definitely going to use that. What did you say? It symbolized one who was fond of noble pursuits and was thrown into the air to call the falcon back from afar. Yeah, dude, we're definitely going to use that. I really like that because I love throwing down wings. And it's like these wings in a little metal cap. So let's see, how do we want to throw that in? Well, I'm thinking right now we kind of have a nice like clustery vertical situation. So we're going to have to decide where we're going at some point here, but I think I'm just going to do it. I think I'm just going to throw it, follow my instinct, and I'm going to throw it off here to the side. I'm going to start with the top right here. That's cool. That's cool. Honestly, of course I don't know everything, but it feels like kind of rare that I get a totally new visual thing in the mix, so thanks for telling me about that. And we'll throw it down like this. I'm going to put the shiny part in just to visually marry it to the rest of the image. Put in like a shine over here too. And sometimes on these kind of like acorn caps, you get this line coming around the side too. It's kind of good to put in sometimes. Makes it feel a little bit more 3D. That's solid. And because it's thrown, I think I'm just going to do this. Normally I wouldn't put in. Perfect. And I'm even going to come around the outside like a ribbon. We'll come back around one more time. Perfect. So you can see when I drew that, instead of making the line stay all the way on the inside, if you come out and come inside, it gives it that like two-dimensional like ribbon quality. And just to pump that up a little bit, I'm going to shade in here. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to shade in here. I'm going to shade in here. Little things like that. Yeah, you can see that adds a nice like visual quality. And I'm going to make it like it's tied on. Perfect. And I really like those two wings. Let's look at them one more time. One more time. This is a new thing that we learned about today. This is dope, but this is cool too. I really like this though. I like that it's two actual wings. I don't know what it actually is. I don't know if it's two actual wings, but I think we're going to land somewhere in between. I'm not going to make them full on like literal birds' wings, but I don't know if someone would know what this is without having seen it. So let's just go for it. I don't want to make them too big either. And there's lots of different wing styles we can deploy, but what I'm going to use for this is I'm going to have that like ridge in the back. I'm actually going to do them both at the same time, so we don't talk all the way through one and then have to go back and do it again. Let's do it this way. I'm going to start from the inside and throw in like the inner wing plumage, in case, again, if people are getting into art or whatever, studying wings and like how they're built, that's one of the most classic art things that has ever happened. There's a painter, I think it was Arnold Böcklin. He's like a Swiss painter. He's part of this group called the Symbolists. He made a really famous painting called Isle of the Dead. I think it was Arnold Böcklin. But one of his friends wrote a letter and they were like, yeah, I go to his studio sometimes and it smells like dead birds in there. It smells like dead animals. And he literally had like dead birds just in his studio so he could study their wings and look at their wings obsessively and like paint them and stuff like that. Nice. Okay. They kind of look like wings. Maybe you can't really tell, but I kind of like it actually. If I did it again, I wouldn't have the middle so clogged up like that, to be completely honest with you. But I'm going to fix it. Not that I need to fix it, but I'm going to like address that. So I'm going to add a little bit of like shadow in here. That might like visually clear it up a little bit. I'm really torn about coloring in these middle feathers, because on the one hand, it could visually clear it up a lot, or it could exacerbate the problem and make it a lot more dense and unclear. But I think it'll be okay. I'm just going to come in with the dots here. Cool. Perfect. Cool. And I like the idea that this is like a bird lure. And I think if I'm going to take the reins in the later portion of the show, I might put another kind of lure opposite it. I'm kind of tempted to put a bird in here too. I'm just going to go for it. Let's just go for it. Let's not restrain ourselves here. So I'm going to throw a bird down. Perfect. And I could have probably done that a little differently, but I really just wanted to make sure it would read as a bird. And I feel really good about that. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Perfect. It's kind of cool. It's a weird object. You can't really tell what it is. Probably you would think it's like an umbrella or something. Although I don't know if someone would know what this is either, right? It's kind of like a weird thing. But I like that. And to balance it out, so this is coming off the white cloud. We're going to have... Perfect. As you draw more, you get more confident making the organic, large, sweeping motions. Cool. I wanted that to get like thicker near the end. It probably got a little bit more thicker than I wanted, but it's not a big deal. And I'm going to balance that out with a, you know where I'm going with this right now? With the ocean animal lure. So that's cool. With the aerial animal lure and the ocean animal lure. And I might use that dichotomy somewhere in an image. That's pretty cool. I never considered like the opposite of a fish lure, but here we are, learning things every day. And actually, I'm just going to make this fish lure totally black, like an iron one, because I think it'll just punch up the visual contrast here. Oh yeah, so someone asked about recommendations for symbolism books. Let's hit that at the end. I'll hit it at the end. I'll plug a few of the books over here. We might open one up. If I run out of suggestions, I'll reach over and grab one. But otherwise, I'll plug it at the end. There's 2 books I recommend people get. Okay, cool. This is looking pretty interesting. It's looking pretty dope. I like the density with like things coming off the side. Now, let's see how far we can go. What time is it? It's 8:06. I think normally we go to like 8:30, but let's see. Let's see how far we can go on this. Peacock feather could be cool. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's get the feather thing going. I'm kind of trying to see it in my mind. I'm just going to go for it. I'll have it coming off with the... Oh, perfect. Did I go too far over? No, it looks good. Okay, cool. Normally when I draw a peacock feather, I have it open up like this. Nice. This is a really good shape. that I nailed, by the way. You get the top totally crested, and then it comes down, you get that little point right there. And I'm going to come in with the circle on the bottom. And I think we can make it look like a peacock feather just with one layer. But the real ones have multiple layers, I think. In Indian art, I don't know why we keep referencing that, but maybe it's just part of my base if I'm just going off the cuff, but peacock kind of represents like royalty. I guess that's somewhat universal. In medieval stuff, in the book I might grab in a second right here, it's going to say that for sure. In medieval stuff, they thought the flesh of the peacock never decayed. So it started to represent immortality, basically. And I think peacock feathers have this like trim on the outside, but even if they don't, I'm just going to put it in. And there are medieval stories, like, you know, basically they thought, like, I have to really commit to this, like, wiggly, organic pattern, otherwise it's going to look stupid. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. It's just so, like, freeform. If I don't go all the way in, it just looks like a mistake. That looks really good, though. And then for these feathers, I'm just going to come in and put them in like this while we're talking. So, yeah, apparently I guess they thought, like, if a peacock died in the woods or something, its flesh would never decay. It would just, like, stay there. There's probably some stories, too, like if you ate it, you would become immortal or something. That's kind of what I think of when I paint it. There's also, I think there's a Greek story where it's like the peacock's tail is actually all these eyes. And I think there's some Greek story where the peacock, you know, some god or something like that, has like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of eyes, and then somehow it becomes associated with the peacock. I actually did a picture. I had this assignment to do something like based on Greek mythology, and I did this picture where it was like a picture of me, but it was broken up into like thousands of little squares, and I called it that. I forget what it was, whatever the main character of that story was. I was like, this is, you know, Asclepius, like getting viewed by like the 100-eyed monster or something. I thought it was kind of clever at the time. Yeah, this looks good. That introduced like a nice texture. You can see the word texture with drawing means like a few different things, but that got us like a nice texture in there. And I think to balance that out, I am just going to throw up, I always use a fish. The fish would be perfect because we can get the scales in. Is there another like ocean animal that we can use? I could put a normal feather. It doesn't have to be a fish thing. I'm just going to go for it. I think it's a good call. I'm going to look down and someone's going to have the perfect suggestion, but it's too late. Because I thought I could fit it in perfect with the line like that. And I want a similar visually dense pattern. You know, there's like a million different kind of scales you could throw down, but I want it to be like as dense and natural feeling as the peacock straw. So yeah, I kind of got it. There's a little bit of like a visual correlation there. They're the only two things in the drawing like that, so your eye kind of ties them together. That was good though. And I got this circle with the shape in the front. I could put like a similar thing over here just to further like visually tie them together. Perfect. Cool. It's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. Okay. Make the mantelpiece a chessboard. 2 on the nose. No, that's cool. But I'm not going to make that a chessboard. Actually I am. Yeah, I'm just going to make the 2 shapes up here. Pawn is kind of the most classic. I think I'm going to go with a pawn because we have kind of this, I don't want to say lowly, but you know, we have the table and the packages. Kind of feels like, I don't know, something about a pawn just feels appropriate. Maybe I can't really articulate what it is. So I'm going to throw, perfect, the pawn down, and we'll see which side I want to make which. We're getting pretty good here. Nice. Okay. I don't know how much those look like pawns, to be honest with you, but I'll put a shape in the middle that will definitively make them look like pawns. Let's make this the black one. We're kind of going back and forth. Maybe I should have made it the other side because I have the black cloud right here, but it's okay. And as I'm coming in coloring, I'm just going to leave strategically a few white spaces in to convey the form of it. You know, the base is kind of like a sphere. It's perfect. Okay, and the white one, it's a little bit easier because all we have to do is put in those same shapes inverse. Cool. And they kind of look like pawns, kind of. Maybe you wouldn't know if you just looked at it. So I want to put something right here in the middle that's going to definitively make them look like pawns. I guess I'm going to make a little bit of a bold move here because one of the chess pieces that looks the most, oh, that's definitely a chess piece, is the bishop because it has this cut, oh, perfect, in its hat. I didn't really leave enough room on the bottom. But it's okay. We're just going to have to deal with that. So we have the bishop up here. I made it half and half so that we can color in the other half of the bishop. You could probably make some, Jungian analysis of what it means. Jungian is in Carl Jung. Of the bishop with the pawns. The bishop is like the leader of the people spiritually, but maybe it's just random. It actually looks good. And we got this black and white coming all the way around. Still haven't done anything here. We could leave this blank. Actually, we have the bone. I know what we're going to do. I'm going to at least throw up the bone in here. And I'm going to color that in black too. Just to keep driving home the black-white thing. This is looking pretty solid. We'll come in and hit it with a few elements to start tying everything together. And then we're going to start landing the plane here. We did not have the typical problem. Normally when we're painting, the problem is that all this random stuff, it starts to be like everything's the same size and nothing's integrated. We really don't have that problem here, but we do want to just tie it all together. Mantelpiece of chessboard, the Welsh, pronounce F like V, also nice. A little boat, perhaps. That's interesting. Yeah, we don't have an opposite for the bird. I guess I did put the fish in. I'm going to make a little bit of a call here. I'm going to try and come in with a really faint line. That's going to be like a horizon in the back. Perfect. Now I'm going to put a little boat in the back. I could have put like an arc, but instead I'm just going to make it like a normal little boat. That's tight. Sometimes it's nice to put in just like little details where there's really not a lot of visual information at all, but it kind of implies a lot. Like even just the way this line is, it's kind of broken. You're like, oh, boat. Like it's kind of just nice for the viewer, I think, to find varying details with varying levels of detail, if that makes sense. I could put another boat over here, but I think we're starting to break up the symmetry. It makes it a little bit more interesting. Symmetry can be static or it can be like dynamic. That's a whole other principle we can go into one day, but symmetry can be like scales that are balanced and then it's just stable and balanced, or symmetry can be like, a yin yang or something where it's a dynamic integration of two things that are balanced. Okay, so let's see. All right, so there's no more suggestions. It's perfect. Lee Cal said something nice. He said, Owen does this all on the fly, basically, and it's a result of a lot of practice. Thanks, man. You too can learn to draw. Just got to do it a lot and ask me for help if you want to, but otherwise you could probably figure it out too. Okay, we are going to do a Learning to Draw episode one day, but not tonight. Okay, let's see. What time is it? 8:15. Okay, cool. There's no more suggestions. Perfect. Okay, let's see. How do we want to start thinking about how we're going to start wrapping this up? I feel like we're really good for the big elements. I just want to tie it together with a few smaller things. I'm kind of torn between like purely decorative elements or if I keep pushing the symbolic things, but let's just go for it. I'm going to fatten this line up right here. I'm going to give it a little bit of a rift just because I think it would be visually interesting. Same deal over here. Fatten this line up a bit. Perfect. We have this kind of looking like a building over here, so I'm just going to go with that. I don't want this line to line up perfectly because then it'll kind of mess it up. I think this really does look like a table, so I don't want to mess that up too much. So let's just do this. This is that part in the drawing where you start to think like, oh, I don't want to ruin it, but then if you lean into that feeling, you lose all the confidence of the drawing, and then you actually do ruin it. So if you take one thing away from watching the show. It's that creatively you can really never lean into that feeling ever under any circumstances. If you start worrying about, oh, I'm going to ruin it, it's over. The game's over. Just stop. You literally lost already. You have to just keep going with the same confidence the whole time. And when you're working with people that are still, everyone's still learning, but are really still learning, that's like one of the hardest things. And you'll see it, like if you are in a classroom or something, people will start and their images will be like really good, and then they'll get to like 75% and they'll kind of lean back, and then it's just like, dude, you lost all the momentum you have. So you can never do that. Okay, and speaking of that, I kind of want to make this like a tower. I feel like it would just kind of fit, and I'm going with these kind of like broken lines because while I don't want to lean out and lose that confidence, I do want to make sure I don't start messing with the visual balance that we have too much. It is kind of a nice like composition, so I don't want to come in super hard over here and make this like really, really dark, and then your eyes like boom locked over here. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. I'm also going to put, this kind of fits with the tower, I guess, in a way. Yeah, it's perfect. And we're even going to just try and keep making it as visually interesting as possible. I'm even just going to just drop in like a little like hint of night sky. Something I've been doing recently is like putting in like the ribbon of night sky. So all these stars are kind of on a ribbon. It kind of like walks your eye right back. That means that down over here, we'll put a sun. I mean, you can't beat it. You can't beat the moon-sun dichotomy. And I'm going to have these rays start super dense and then fade out just to keep that visual interest as high as possible. One thing if you're learning to draw is you got to like look at a lot of stuff, natural stuff especially. And you'll always notice like little bits of like things that just make it infinitely deep. You look at a plant or something, there's always that like natural tapering, that natural like progression. Anyway, I'm going to put another sun over here too. It's my picture. I can do whatever I want. Honestly, I just think it kind of goes with like the lone kind of afternoony feeling of the boat. Throw a little bit of some water down here. I'm tempted to put like the tail of a whale like this because it just kind of implies like the depth more. I'm just going to do it. I feel like that is a good idea. I guess part of the theme of this drawing became like implying larger spaces, I guess. Maybe I am always doing that. Yeah, perfect. I'll come in here a little bit lighter. Cool. Let's see. Something over here, because now we have that. I can almost see like a little paisley thing. I could have something coming up to bite this lure. I could actually have it be the same creature. That would actually be kind of cool. I could have the whale like coming up towards the lure. Yeah, let's do it. Do I put the mouth in? Yeah, I think I should. I'm going to put the mouth in because normally I wouldn't, but something about this little detail looks like a fish mouth almost, and I'm going to put in the exact same shape. Oh, dude. Exactly what I was thinking. And I think just somehow that like visual, you can see, maybe someone wouldn't like immediately pick up on it, but it does kind of resonate. Resonate is a really good word for what you can often do with form in a drawing. And we're getting there for sure. One detail I put in, I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to put it in and then we're going to say, oh, boom, that's obviously the last detail. Okay. I'm looking at the screen, so I'm seeing the same thing that you are, just so you know. And kind of partially what I'm doing right now is I'm noticing how my eye is moving around the picture. So if I was alone, I would look away for a while and come back, but that doesn't make for an interesting show, so I'm not doing that. But you can feel your eye. This is an interesting like visual exercise. I'll take my hand away, but I'm still here, obviously. Just feel the way your eye is like moving around in the picture. Let's take just 3 or 4 seconds. So for me, I'm kind of up here, and then I can feel my eye kind of like bouncing around. So we kind of have this circle thing going on. for me, it's almost like what I would say mannerist thing. Someone can look up the term mannerism if they want. It's a school of art that came after the Renaissance, but they often have pictures. I'm especially thinking of Pontormo's Deposition if someone wants to look up something interesting, where the middle is not like so crazy busy, but then you have like a ring of like busyness around it. It's kind of what we have going on right over here. So I'm kind of just feeling like we need something like this, right? You can almost kind of feel it visually, right? You can kind of feel that we're like, and you just kind of want your eye to just come up and around up here. So I'm just going to go for it, man. What I'm really feeling like is I thought that this, oh yeah, this is a really good art moment right now. I thought that this and this would be tied together visually, but actually what happened is this and this are tied together visually. You can see that the actual resonance and tie-in is these two things. They have the same type of visual detail, the same level of visual detail. So what I'm going to do is we want to port this energy over to this side, and I'm kind of just going to go for it. I can almost see it in my mind, but let's just go for it. I was looking at the screen for a while. Hold on one second. I'm just going to recalibrate really quick. I think what we need is this. This has a certain motion to it right here. So we're kind of just going to pick that up. Boom. We're going to come right, boom, like that. Not going to think about it too much, but I'm just going to... Perfect. Come up like that. It folded over. It hit the other line, but it's not a big deal because I'm making a plant and sometimes that happens. And I'm going to put a flower on the end of this. I could just make it a leaf, but why not push up the detail? Because I want to have something on the end here that's the same visual density as this. So I'm going to make it like a super tight, closed lily, I guess. I tried to even get that same, if you've been here the whole time, that same arc and then interesting shape underneath, but maybe I'm just being visually obsessive. And I'm going to make it, boom. This kind of like one of these closed lilies. Perfect. Come around. You can almost feel that this flower would like open or something, right? Perfect. Maybe I will have the outermost petals just open a little bit. Yeah, totally. Just to get a little bit of this energy back over here. Yeah, that's exactly what we needed. And I'm going to put in the leaves, kind of like these feathers. And I think we'll be good. Normally, we talked about the kind of natural progression of the plant shapes and stuff. But it's so long, it's so much longer than this, and it's coming through a kind of negative space on its own. So I don't want it to be too much. I don't want it to be too heavy. So I'm just going to intuitively put in these thin leaves that I use sometimes, and I'm going to make them thinner as I get to the top. It's almost going to be like a line. They almost become like a line at the top. Perfect. Boom. Yeah, man, that's exactly what we needed right there. And we need, I thought we need just like this energy over here is really solid. I could just put a few more of the stars down over here. I almost feel like I kind of want to bring the staircase down here. That's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going out on a little bit of a limb, but I feel like this is the way to go. And I feel like this will look cool visually because it like literally, it's kind of like a joke almost. It's like a visual joke. It'll like walk your eye into the picture. Oh, perfect. And I'm going to make the lines so faded out that maybe near the end you can't even really tell what it is. And I really should put the other side of the staircase in first, but I just didn't. So, and I kind of want it to just disintegrate. I want it to almost disintegrate into just a bunch of dots, so you can't even really tell what it is. This is actually too many dots. If I was in Photoshop, I'd probably take some out, but it's okay. That's just me being visually obsessive. And I want to make sure the top is clear. You can actually tell it's like a staircase. Yeah, there we go. Come down, and then I'm starting to fade it out, but I'm still keeping the form. And now it doesn't really matter. This curved line is like sticking out to me. There we go. That's better. I'll just adjust it. There we go. Oh, perfect. That fixed it. Cool. And we need a little bit of the under. The underline is also part of what defines it a little bit. The angle's not perfect, but it's okay. There we go. Just a little bit of that. Okay. Huh. I think we're good. Yeah, man. See, like I said it a minute or two ago, but I thought we'd put in one detail and then be like, okay, it's done. You can kind of feel anything else that we tried to get in here, it kind of just set itself. You can feel, the clay's drying and the details are setting, and then all of a sudden you zoom out and you're like, yeah, that's it, man. That's it. Perfect. I think we're right on time, too. Yeah, it's 8:28. Perfect. I'm actually just going to add one thing in here. I feel like I need a little bit of the dot texture right there. Yeah. It's really, really, really important detail. Okay, cool, man. That was a good one. Wow. I was just really, really mentally focused on that for the whole time we've been doing the stream. I can feel my brain really, really sniper scoped in right now. Cool. I'm just looking. I'm going to make sure. I feel like we're good. Just so you know what I'm thinking, we talked about the meta creative process. I'm feeling like there are places where I could try and sneak something else in, but I feel like everything's too balanced. I was thinking, I could get a dot drawing in here on the badger's head, but it's so clear and everything. I don't want to start tweaking with something that's already done. So we did it. Cool. Let me move this stuff on the outside so we can just see it. Well, it's pretty much the whole screen is pretty much the whole white drawing. Bring more light in. Cool, man. All right. Well, that was really fun. That was really, really, really fun. Cool. Well, if you've watched the show before, at the end I always say, I feel like I need to recap what just happened, but you were just here the whole time. So that was really awesome. I really like the drawing style on the show. I think we might push it a little bit more. I think we might push the black and white aspect of it. I guess we'll do a little wrap up at the end now. We might push the black and white aspect of it. I spent a really long time, probably a year of my life, just doing black. Yeah, someone said symbolism books. I just remembered also. So I'll talk about that too really quick. I spent a really long time, a year of my life, doing just black and white stuff. And I really, really, really recommend that for anyone into art or getting into art. We'll do, maybe next episode. It's my show. I can do whatever we want. Whatever I want. Maybe I'll do a drawing on your own or how to get started drawing or sketching and things like that episode next week. Maybe we'll do that. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Symbolism books. Okay. I think that would be cool because even if you don't draw or anything, if you watch the show, you could buy a sketchbook for $5 from Walmart or whatever and just have a pen. And it is a skill you can develop if you have time to hang out on Twitter and stuff, not to be if you have time to be on your phone. But you can pick it up and get good at it over time. And whether or not you become an artist, you really can get to a point where you would impress most people. That's what I like to tell people. You can definitely get to a point where you can impress most people with the art that you're doing, for sure. Definitely, you could do that. Okay, I'm going to move this really quick because maybe two people asked in the stream, symbolism books. There's two main books that I recommend, and they're the two best ones by far. I've bought a lot of symbolism books, and these are the two best ones. Definitely. These are the two main ones I have, and everything else I have is just frankly something random I keep around to get more inspiration from, but these are really, really the two main ones. This one is really good. It's called The Book of Symbols, obviously. The author is probably going to be Taschen. That's the publisher. It's not actually the author. It's written by a large number of people. You can see it's published by this group. I don't know if you can read it on the screen, or maybe my eyes are just strained by this point. But it says, The Archive for Research in Archetypal Symbolism. It's this Jungian book thing. When I say Jungian, some people might not know that's Jungian with a J, like Carl Jung. Just saying we're all from different educational backgrounds here. But this book is really, really, really good because it basically just goes through everything from the most basic symbols, you know what I'm saying, the most the most, I don't want to say elementary, but that's kind of is what it is. The most primordial, let's say the most primordial symbols, water, whirlpool, night, day, the sun, comet, crescent, moon, things like that, the moon itself, all the way up to animals, all the animals, the human body, movement and expression, falling, that's really cool. Things humans do to modern things, like gun is even in here and stuff. Necklace, there's even subway in the back, subways in here, bridge, things humans build. So this is a really good book for a variety of reasons. You can pretty much always jump in here and get some inspiration. For sure, it has a really good selection of art. But what I really think this is good for is it gets your mind in the mode of thinking symbolically, if that makes sense. It gets your mind in the mode of like, oh, like what does night mean in art? For me, it's art, but maybe you do writing or whatever, but I'm just going to say for art, what does the moon mean? What does this stuff mean? And thinking about it in that way, in like an archetypal symbolism sense, in case people don't know what archetype means. A type is like a relationship between two things. We talked about like typology, where Old Testament things relate to New Testament things. But an archetype is like the largest type. It's like the largest set of, it's like a box that things go in and represent stuff, if that makes sense. It's like, the sun represents similar things in all different cultures. The moon represents similar things in all different cultures. So digging down deep in there, we did this one time on the show, unfortunately. This is the best like window into that. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I think if you get it and look through it, you'll see exactly what I mean. So this is the best pan-cultural, pan-viewpoint, across-viewpoint symbolism book for sure, and I really, really, really highly recommend it. The specific Christian one, I actually don't have it next to me right now, but it's called Signs and Symbols in Christian Art, and I think it's by George Ferguson. The guy's last name is definitely Ferguson. That's a really good one. It's called Signs and Symbols in Christian Art. It's really about Renaissance art in particular, but it's a whole nother story. But Renaissance art is kind of one crystallization of Western Christian symbolism. So that's a really, really good book. I really, really like that one a lot. And same deal, it gives you places to jump off from and things to poke into. So those are the two I would recommend. I haven't actually found a good like biblical symbolism book. You think that would exist? I have a few things, like I have Bible Signs and Symbols. I have this book called A Dictionary of Bible Types. I mean, I don't want to like say anything negative about these books. They're really good, but they're not like, oh wow, this is like the ultimate. Maybe this one is. This is A Dictionary of Bible Types, which means that it specifically goes into what I just said, how things in the Old Testament relate to the New Testament. So it actually is like very comprehensive in terms of that, but it's not exactly the same thing as biblical symbolism, if you catch my drift. Typology would be like, oh, Moses is kind of like a type of Christ, and Moses' basket is kind of like a type of the ark, and Mary is kind of like a type for the ark, or really you would say the ark's kind of like a type for Mary. It's like tying these things together. Not exactly the same thing as like pure symbolism, but yeah, the main two I'd recommend, especially as a jumping off point, is this one, and then Signs and Symbols in Christian Art by George Ferguson. When you get the Signs and Symbols in Christian Art book, just so you know, some people's copies, the images are in color. It has like Renaissance painting in there. Mine are in black and white. Doesn't matter for me because I've seen a lot of Renaissance art, but if you really have no experience with it at all, it might be worth it to get the color ones, because you can imagine black and white Renaissance art, it doesn't really read as well, so something you might want to be aware of. Okay, last two questions. Have you read Matthew Pagot's Symbolism book? No, it's like Jonathan Pagot's brother. I don't know how to say his name, but it's Pageaus. No, they're really cool, those two guys, Jonathan and his brother. I haven't checked that out, though. I'll check that out for sure. If anyone doesn't know about Jonathan, check him out. I was on his show. He let me on his show. He has like way more YouTube presence than me, so I should give him the reverse shout out. He actually is a cool guy, though. And he does some cool stuff that would be relevant to people interested in this. Other one, I don't know if you record these, but if you did, you could sell them as an instruction set. I'd put some cash down for them for the series. That's cool, man. Thanks. I leave the YouTube videos up. I have thought about doing some instructional drawing stuff. That would be cool, but if we try that, we'll do it for free first, and then if we do a course or something, that would be cool. But thanks, man. Yeah, I think one of the directions the show is going to go in is more like instructional drawing stuff. So yeah, man, we'll see how it goes. And that's a perfect question to end off with. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for watching the show. I really have a good time doing this with you guys. We'll end with our little image on screen here. Of course, the chat source symbology edition can't happen without you guys. So thanks for being here. And that's it. Get back to your life. We were here at the spiritual oasis, but now we go back to the chessboard where we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. And I will see you guys on the internet, where we all hang out together. Thanks for coming through.